Welcome in to another edition of Where the 99 Lead. I'm Andrew Joyce, your host, and Where the 99 Lead. It's brought to you by the University of Pikeville. We talk all things regarding the University of Pikeville, academics, athletics, the Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine. We've talked about recently the library and some of the many collections, the historical collections they have. And today, for parents out there and many students, this may be the most important show that you will tune in for. We talk financial aid. A college education, a wonderful thing. So many people want that college education, and most, if not all, need help paying for that college education. Today we talk financial aid, and Judy Bradley, UPike Director of Student Financial Services, our guest. Welcome back in.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
One of our favorite shows, and the reason it's one of my favorite shows, I've been a parent of 2 college students, and financial aid is a wonderful thing.
It's a wonderful thing, especially if you can come up enough money to pay for the college tuition. That'd be an awesome thing.
We're going to put some myths to rest today. We're going to play Mythbusters because many people think I can't afford college. And
Absolutely.
every time that we come out of this show, every year, we find out that there are ways to pay for college that many
Andrew.
don't realize.
Yes, and absolutely. And the beginning of that is the FAFSA application. That's the free application for federal student aid. This is the time of year that we need to talk for that, for students and parents to actually file the application to see exactly what their eligibility is in determining that help.
We're going to talk FAFSA a lot. Hang on to FAFSA. It's an acronym you'll need to know, and we'll get into that in detail during this edition of Where the 99 Ladies. We talk financial aid for the upcoming 2014-2015 school year. Judy Bradley, before we go any further, let's talk about your arrival at the University of Pikeville. You have a long and storied career, and you didn't just land on the UPike campus a couple of days ago. Let's talk about your business career and how you landed at UPike.
Well, I appreciate that. I actually landed at UPike way back in the day as a student.
Right.
I attended all 4 years, graduated at the 4-year mark with a business administration degree and an emphasis in marketing. I basically then kind of went on my way. I worked in banking and actually was a marketing director at a local bank that's pretty much gone now. Then I went to a local hospital and worked in various departments there, and actually came back to UPike as a public relations director and worked in my field under the marketing field.
Sure.
And moved a few places as an employee at the Pikeville College at that point. I actually worked in athletics for a little while, worked in transfer counseling through admissions, and then I ended up in financial aid. So I've got a long history at Pikeville College, now UPike,
Sure.
and I think I want to say my heart bleeds orange.
Yeah, I think it definitely does. Judy Bradley, chances are you encounter every student that comes onto the UPike campus every year, because I know the numbers are astronomical. When you talk about students at UPike, I know the numbers in years past have been 97, 98, even 99% of all students receive some sort of financial aid.
You're correct, Andrew. And you know, not just those students that actually arrive on campus. We work at those potential students that present packages to see if Pikeville's the right fit for
Sure.
them, you know, just to make sure they can afford it. And that's where I think you started when we first started with this conversation, is so many times students just think they can't afford a private school like University of Pikeville. But back again on that FAFSA form, you just need to list the school that you might remotely be interested in. Give that school, especially UPike, the opportunity, and you'll be very surprised, often pleased at the offer that we can give you as far as financial aid.
And students that are seniors now, maybe a rising junior, that are starting to look at the cost of college, and in particular those seniors this year that are looking at their college beginning next fall, it's very important. On the FAFSA, it used to be you list 6 schools. Mm-hmm. Even if you have, okay, there's no way I'm going to go there, but I want to find out.
Correct.
If you've got it narrowed down to 3, go ahead and list those other 3 that are remote possibilities. List all 6 schools, and then you receive the financial aid package from all 6 schools.
Correct. And you know, when I talk to the seniors at the high schools, I actually tell them to equate this process to buying a car.
Sure.
You know, shop around. Let these auto dealers give you that price quote.
Right.
And basically that's kind of the contrast, is that you're looking at those award letters that are generated from that FAFSA result at those schools. They're going to come up with a financial aid award letter, and you want to pretty much compare apples to apples. You want to always encourage students and parents to understand each item of that financial aid award letter, so that when they compare the scholarships against scholarships, or maybe, you know, one institution might have loans listed on an award letter, you want to make sure they understand a loan is money that you have to repay.
Right.
So you want to compare those award letters wisely and understand what you are comparing.
Let's get started with a definition.
Okay.
What exactly is financial aid, and what does it consist of?
Financial aid is any means of money that would be available to a student to pay towards their education. Let's say educational expenses. A lot of times students and parents think the education is only going to be the tuition expense.
Sure.
Or if they live on campus, the room and board expense, and of
Right.
course you've got book expense. But realize that financial aid can be so much more. It can be an availability of funds that can help you towards any expense of attending a college. That expense may be clothing.
Right.
It may mean transportation.
Sure.
You've got to have gas money to drive your vehicle. You have to
Right.
have a vehicle. You may need a laptop to do your work in. So there's a lot of different aspects that comprise that total cost of
Right.
attendance. So financial aid can be grants. We all love grants. That's the free money.
Money
And we're
that
gonna-
doesn't need to be paid
It
back.
doesn't need to be paid back. That's the aid that everyone would love to do
Sure.
or have. You've got scholarships. Those scholarships can be an academic scholarship based on that student's academic performance.
Sure.
Some schools will look at the GPA from high school level, graduate level, once they've graduated from their high school. Some academic scholarships are based on ACT, SAT scores. You have other scholarships that, of course, are related to their athletic capability,
Sure.
depending if that coach is recruiting that athlete for their team.
Right.
Then you have keys. We in Kentucky have a merit-based program where students from the ninth grade earn their key scholarship. That's a scholarship that students can bring to any school in the state of Kentucky, as long as it's in the state. And then you also have other need-based aid. That might be the work-study program, where students are actually employed by the institution through federal funds, and that can comprise of a lot of different jobs. Then you have outside scholarships. You have entities, Rotary Club, Kiwanis. We have lots of areas represented by multiple outside agencies that, you've got people's employment places that will give scholarships.
Sure.
Cell phone servicers give scholarships to customers,
Indeed.
insurance companies.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that students can actually go ahead and apply for while they're in high school for outside scholarship monies as well.
Literally, there are thousands, maybe tens of thousands of scholarships available from outside sources. All you have to do
Absolutely.
is go on the internet and search. Do be careful, but there are legitimate scholarships out there. It's all not a scam. There are truly legitimate scholarships, and thousands of them out there that are available. Some may consist simply of a student writing a short paper.
200-word
qualify.
essay,
Yeah.
and they've got it. And many times it is just the fact that their dad might work for a certain
Right.
company, or just ask,
Sure.
And it's all time sensitive. Let's face it, their money runs out.
Sure.
And many of these scholarships that students may search on the internet, of course, everyone in the country's looking for that same scholarship.
Right.
So getting on it pretty quick is very important.
And those outside scholarships, many may be aimed at certain majors. I know my daughter in particular, I don't think she'll mind me telling this, that when she was in nursing, there were scholarships available that were in particular for nursing students, someone going into the healthcare field. So it may be the intended major of a student that a scholarship is available for as well. Research, that's the important thing with
Yep.
scholarships. And what a great, I'm off from school for Christmas break project for a senior this year. While they're off they could research, find some scholarships to apply for, get those done, write a couple of essays, and possibly earn some scholarship money. We'll talk more about that. Judy Bradley, our guest, UPike Director of Student Financial Services, and what does a student need to do? What does a parent need to do to get the process started? I would imagine it starts with FAFSA.
It starts with FAFSA, and you know, Andrew, that's something that we are doing in our financial aid office as we speak. I, myself, and another coworker, we're actually making presentations to all of our regional high school seniors at this moment. If we wait till January, as we did years past,
Sure.
we're too late.
Right.
So now is the time for families to start looking at those last pay stubs for the end of the year. We're right there. They will want to maybe compare that income from 2013 that they anticipate. You want to go back and maybe look at your 2012 tax return.
Right.
If that income is pretty close, then by all means you can use the last year's tax return to come up with some good estimates. But at this point, our Kentucky students need to get on this FAFSA application earlier than ever before. In years past, we have been saying January 15th is the required, or we hope preferred, deadline or target date to get this FAFSA completed.
Sure.
This year, we're asking students and parents to look no later than January 5th to complete this estimated FAFSA.
Budget concerns, part of the issue. Educational, I would imagine the dollars, federal and state, there's a shorter stack than there used to be.
Shorter stack,
It will
more
run out
students.
sooner.
Yes, more students and more savvy students. Students understand the reality that they've got to get their name in that pot soon. And let's just face it, the earlier you file, the higher you are on the list, the better chance you have of getting those funds before they're depleted.
Deadlines, 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 and they are much sooner than they have been in years past. The FAFSA, when can it be completed?
The FAFSA website opens up January 1, and this is FAFSA, FAFSA.ed.gov.
Okay.
One of the misunderstandings, and today I presented at a school, and I've actually had 3 students at a local high school just today tell me that they already had it completed. Of course, my alarm goes off,
Sure.
and I realized very quickly that student went to FAFSA.com.
Oh,
You don't want to go there. This is a website, very legit. They're a very good company.
Sure.
But they're basically set up to assist families in doing this completion. They start collecting the information prior to the end of the year, and then they, just like the rest of us, go in on January 1 and start filing the FAFSAs for these students and parents.
right.
They're going to charge you a pretty good penny.
Yes.
We're talking close to $100 an application.
Wow.
That's the first word in this acronym, is free.
Free.
This application's free. So that's why I'm so thankful that you can tell this is near and dear to my heart, but that's the one thing that I'm very thankful about UPike. They understand the severity and the time frame, and giving these students the education they need to be able to get the most financial aid they need. And they have allowed me for years to go out now throughout the region and teach this to our regional seniors.
And I think they're getting the word, because it seems our students, they have tuned into this program. They've seen you at the schools, and I think students and parents both are much more savvy now than they have been, and maybe we've done a better job educating you and your staff getting out there. But the free application for federal student aid, that's where it starts, FAFSA.ed.gov.
Yes,
That's
sir.
where you want to go. January 1st, you don't need anyone to help you. It's a very simple process.
It is, and now, Andrew, they've got it all database. It's all on the internet, and let's face it, that's what we work with.
Sure.
Still, I have some students that say, but my parent is afraid of the internet. They will not allow this sensitive information to go on the internet.
Sure.
Please understand that you can still do the paper application.
Right.
I don't carry those to the schools like I used to.
Right.
And the high schools don't even have them. The
Yes.
government requires that you call them and request that paper application.
Right.
But here's what happens, Andrew. The student and parent fills the application out. They do the old-fashioned wet signature. They mail it into the Department of Ed, and then the Department of Ed turns right around, puts it on the internet.
Right.
For the schools, the colleges, universities to use that information.
Sure.
So it's landing on the internet. That information is secure. It is as secure as it can be with the federal regulations and all of the different PIN numbers and things that we need to access.
Right.
I just encourage you to use the internet application. It is very helpful in that you have actually an online chat that you can ask right then and there if you're stuck on a question.
Sure.
They can assist you through it, and they've simplified the questions so much more.
It is not a complicated process.
all.
It is nothing like a tax return.
It used to be.
It used to be. In the old days, it was quite a form. Today's form, much simpler, and it's very navigable for parents. You can work through it. You can get help online.
You can.
It is very user-friendly. Something you'll want to remember is the UPike code that you'll want to use. The school code is 001980. And of course, you'll have a social security number for your student. You'll have PIN numbers as well for electronic signatures. I still remember mine.
That's great, Andrew.
I mean,
and the one thing that I've learned from my students and speaking with them the month of December is that they always want to create their own PINs.
Right.
My suggestion at this time is please let the system generate your PIN number for you.
right?
I'm hearing a lot of students saying, but I like using my PIN number. And I said, okay, if you created your PIN number, what would you create it to be? It's
Sure.
a 4-digit number. And you hear them say, of course we all know this, the last 4 digits of their social,
Yes.
their date of birth, the
Yes.
last 4 digits of their phone number.
Uh-huh.
And my skin cringes.
Or 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. And we all know if there was a dishonest person out there and they wanted to steal your identity, that's the numbers they're going to try first.
First ones.
So please just go to pin.ed.gov. Let the system generate the PIN,
Sure.
and of course students and parents both will have to do this process. The system will immediately display your PIN number.
Right.
You don't have to wait for it to come to an email. Used to they had to mail them to you via the snail mail. Now you get it immediately within 3 seconds and you're ready to file your FAFSA and sign electronically with those PIN numbers.
Yeah, it's a very simplified process, a very safe process as well. You mentioned old school, and that makes me feel old, Judy,
Yeah.
because I remember getting that PIN code in one of
the
those
mail.
peel-back envelopes that looked like a tax refund check, and there's that PIN code. Had it stuck on the refrigerator for years.
Yep.
Yeah, well, we're in college, yeah. That's
It's-
how I remember that number.
And that PIN number, Andrew, like you said, that will be with you forever.
Forever.
I talk to students again, and I tell them, no, how many of you are planning on going to a graduate or a professional school?
Sure.
They will use that same PIN number for that other field of study. Many of them kind of look at me funny when I say, even when you become a parent and your kids go to college, you will use that same PIN number to sign the FAFSA for your students.
I have a 27-year-old, a 24-year-old, and a 12-year-old.
So you'll need that PIN number.
I will still need that same PIN number.
You will.
Judy Bradley, our guest, UPike Director of Student Financial Services, on this edition of Where the 99 Lead. One of the most important programs that you'll see presented by the University of Pikeville, and that's the financial aid show that we talk with Judy Bradley. We talk about FAFSA, so important. January 1st, get it in. Get it started. Money does run out, folks. There is not a huge barrel at Fort Knox with college financial aid dollars, and they just keep dishing it out. It does run out, and sadly, it does. Judy, let's talk again about some of the individual types of financial aid. Pell Grants and FSEOG grants. Tell us what they are.
Okay, first of all, let me kind of talk a little bit about what I hear a lot of times with this actual application. Many times students will come to me and say, Judy, my mom said we don't need that application.
Right.
We are not going to be eligible for anything. And that's a misconception, because a lot of times people think this federal application, and that's what it is, that's why it has the word federal in there.
Sure.
It is not just to give you eligibility at the federal level.
Right.
And many times parents and students think this Pell Grant is the only thing that the FAFSA is going to give you eligibility for.
Sure.
But first of all, yes, we would all love to have the Pell. I call it the Granddaddy Grant. But that is a need-based grant based on the results of the FAFSA. If you are eligible with the EFC, that's your expected family contribution,
Right.
that's the result. If you have an EFC of, I think it's maybe $5,700 or less, that's going to be a range from a 0 EFC on up, you could get Pell Grant, and that is the federal grant that is eligible to those students that
Right.
qualify. Now, FSEOG is another federal grant that is school specific. Depending on that school, they may or may not receive those grant funds from the government. And that's where we distribute those grants. Pell Grant is distributed by the government to the student, And then the FSEOG grant is a supplemental grant that some schools, again, may have that we can supplement a student's Pell Grant.
Sure. And then also through the federal part of financial aid, direct to loans, both subsidized and unsubsidized. What's the difference?
Okay, subsidized is just that, Andrew. It's subsidized by the government, meaning that the government is taking care of that interest for the student while the student is in school. And there's ranges. Students that are a dependent freshman level, that's usually the ones that kind of tune into this program because it's new and we understand that. But their eligibility for a subsidized loan is just $3,500 a year. So that student that is a freshman dependent student, their maximum amount of subsidized loans is $3,500.
Right.
Unsubsidized eligibility for that same student is $2,000 a year. Now the difference between the two is the government is not subsidizing that interest on the unsub loan.
Sure.
So as soon as the student uses that second disbursement, that's usually your spring term, it's divided into the 2 terms, that interest is going to start accruing on that student's loan.
Right.
They have a couple options. They can let it continue to accrue, or they can keep their interest paid up while they're in school. And what happens when they go into repayment 6 months after they graduate college, they go into repayment on those loans. Of course, the subsidized, they're paying back the principal only. Unsub, if they haven't kept their interest paid up, they're paying back all that compound interest on top of the principal.
Sure.
So it
And
can add up.
it's a good idea to take care of that interest as you go, or to
Absolutely.
avoid those loans if possible.
Right.
Federal work study also available, jobs out there on campus and off campus, we've learned, for certain students through the federal work study program.
Probably one of my favorite programs, Andrew. I just see so much growth with students
Sure.
that are part of our work study program. It's kind of like the FSEOG program. It's federal funded. Different schools, some schools may not even get the program. UPike, we're blessed to receive quite a bit of money from the government, and we utilize that to employ students to work in various areas. We try to match them up to what they're interested in. You have students that may be interested in library science. We're going to assign them to the library. You have students that are interested in maybe government.
Sure.
Have a young lady right now that just recently graduated from UPike. She did her work study at a nonprofit, our chamber conference, our chamber office, and she is now an employee of the chamber doing
Right.
very well.
Yeah.
Hospital, we have students that actually sign on as a volunteer at PMC, and it's a wonderful opportunity if they're interested in medical field.
Sure.
They can work as a volunteer and gain work study hours and work study money. So it's wonderful.
Work study is available through nonprofit organizations outside the
Yes.
university, and that's something that I only learned a couple of years ago. I think it's a tremendous program, and we can see the growth in those students. Also, we moved to state grant, and more grants available: state financial aid, CAP grant, KTG grant. What's the difference?
Difference is a lot of money.
Yes.
This is really what's driving our conversation about this January 5th deadline,
Right.
or proposed deadline. Because state grants, like you said, we've got more students than ever trying to get into school, get that funding, and your budgets are much less. So the early bird gets the worm. That's an old saying, but that's true in this case. The students that are Pell eligible to receive the Pell Grant, if they file early enough, and the results, of course, are automatically sent to your state agency, we call it KIA.
Right.
If KIA determines that everything is good on their FAFSA, they will put them in line for eligibility for the CAP grant. That's a college access program, and that's pretty much a supplement to the Pell Grant. That grant is the same as it is this academic year. It's $1,900 for the year 14-15. Students can be part-time, they can be full-time. But of course, if they're part-time, that grant will prorate at $79 an hour. Again, they have to be Pell eligible, and the student in Kentucky can receive that at any school in the state, whether it be a public school, state school, or a private institution. KTG grant is my favorite.
Yes.
Because it is specifically developed for those students looking at those private schools.
The great equalizer.
Great equalizer that was developed to try to bring that tuition level down a little bit.
Sure.
That we all know is common for a private school. We don't get those state subsidies that other states' programs get.
Right.
So it's wonderful in that a student is attending a private school. They do have to be full-time to receive this grant.
Sure.
And the neat thing about the KTG, it brings that tuition expense down And they don't even have to be Pell eligible to get it.
And
they just have to have need.
That's one of those myth busters.
Yes.
The KTG grant available for students at private schools, and it does make private schools much more affordable and more in line with state schools. And I think that's one of the myths that has been busted is parents, they get a little bit of a shock when they see that this grant's been applied, and it makes the private school much more affordable. And some, it brings it back into the picture where some had already written it off.
Right. And that's one of the reasons why I say just give me a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Put 001980 on your FAFSA. Let us do what we can to show you that you can afford a private school like UPike.
Absolutely.
And one of the other things that was developed just a couple years ago that kind of goes in line with the KTG is our Pikeville need-based grant. That again is a myth buster.
Right.
That basically through some calculations where we look at that cost of attendance, we subtract the EFC, which is the result of that FAFSA. I've been allowed to take a percentage of that and just add that into those additional scholarships, the athletic, academic, Pell Grant, whatever, KTG grant, and add more money to that package just to kind of help equal out that tuition expense again.
Sure. Those are some of the federal and state programs. We don't have time to list every individual source of financial aid that's out there, but again, institutional aid is available through UPike. Pikeville Promise, athletic scholarships. Also, I know there have been alumni scholarships. There are academic team scholarships, music scholarships for vocalists, so many different things, and those are all institutional money.
They are institutional. We do have a stacking policy that, let's just face it, we've got to have a limit at some sort.
Sure.
So usually each student, we've got many opportunities for students to pursue extracurricular activities, and we encourage that. You and I know that the more involved you are, the more grown up you're going to be, and the more experienced you're going to be. Just your experience is just going to be so much more worthy.
Right.
But basically to give academic team monies or maybe vocal or choir or band, we have to limit it.
Sure.
So each student can only get one extracurricular scholarship. We can't stack that money, and that's very common throughout most institutions.
Right. Outside scholarships we've talked about, and of course other monies. Vocational rehab is something we haven't talked about that I know they're very active in finding students that are eligible.
They are very active. They actually visit the high schools.
Sure.
And most of the time when I see these students, they're already aware if they're a candidate for vocational rehabilitation grants.
Absolutely.
But that is, again, another time-sensitive issue. And they do require the results of the FAFSA as well. So it's important that they get in line for this voc rehab money because their money, too, runs out just as fast.
The FAFSA is something that must be done, and it's not something you can avoid. If you have a student that's going to be in college, you must complete the FAFSA for so many different types of financial aid. And I think there may be parents out there that say, well, I'm not going to qualify for that. Chances are there are financial aid monies that are available, and scholarships. Many, you have to have a FAFSA complete to get the scholarship.
Correct. It's absolutely
It's very
true.
safe. It's easy. FAFSA.ed.gov. We'll have that on the screen. You can take a look at that website. But Judy wanted to finish up with a special event that's coming up to the University of Pikeville, and this is brand new. The UPike Office of Student Financial Services partnering with other colleges about College Goal Kentucky. Tell us about it briefly.
Very excited about that. College Goal Kentucky has reached out throughout the state to reach more students. It used to be limited to just one day out of the year on a Sunday, but they have appealed to various colleges, and we were one that volunteered to do this. It's basically workshops actually doing the FAFSA.
Sure.
So our campus computer labs, I'm going to have all my specialists through financial aid available to actually service our students and parents to come in, sit down with us at a computer, and we actually help them file their FAFSA.
Amazing. January 6th, 6 to 9 p.m.
It's on a Monday evening. You do not need to worry about coming in your work clothes. You don't need to worry about coming in hungry. We're going to have some snacks. We are going to sit down, file the FAFSA. We want to do it as a will file. Again, you're not going to have your W-2s by then.
Right.
So you want to bring some information, whether it be a last pay stub, prior year tax return, bring enough information so that we can make a good, sound estimate on the income levels.
Absolutely. January 6th, January 11th, and then again January 13th, and Saturday hours on the 11th, 10 to 2, evening hours from 6 to 9. That is good for most people that have jobs and things. Again, very informal. Come hungry. There will be food there.
Right.
Get the information you need. And as always, Judy, we need more time, but we're out of time.
Need more time, but let me make sure that those time frames, please know that we will be available throughout the day. If we see more need, we have more people that we can service during those time frames, we'll put some more workshops out there. But if you're off work at 7 o'clock and you think you need to be there at 6, that's not the case.
Sure.
We will be available between those time frames. So come on in if you get off work at 8 o'clock.
College Goal, Kentucky. Judy Bradley, Director of Student Financial Services at the University of Pikeville, thanks so much for being here. If someone has questions, how can they reach your office?
Let me give you our direct line to our office manager. It is area code 606-218-5247.
You'll want that number. If you have questions about financial aid, great people, as they all are at the University of Pikeville, very, very helpful. And Judy Bradley, making sure that our students get the information they need, get the financial aid they need.
And get the money they need.
Get the money they need, and educating our students. They all need a little help. Great program. Absolutely. Judy, thanks for being here.
Appreciate it.
Judy Bradley, UPike Director of Student Financial Services, our guest on this edition of Where the 99 Lead. I'm Andrew Joyce. Where the 99 Lead, it's been brought to you by the University of Pikeville, the leading university of Central Appalachia.